Hello, everyone, and sorry we were running a couple minutes late. We had a couple links that were going to the wrong people at the wrong time, so we really apologize that we weren't here right away. But nevertheless, we're here now, and we'll get started. We actually do webinars like this at different times during the year, and for the most part, tonight we've heard enough from enough parents out there who might have seniors who are graduating and they're concerned about like how things are going, what's going on in the market, or what's the probability of their students being able to find employment and the like. And so we want to make sure we addressed all that so that you had all the information you needed to feel good about like where we are in the process and how to help your child to the extent that that's possible. Um, the other thing that I want to mention to you is that, part of what we do is we really see our parents as part of the Wake Forest family, and we just hope that you had an amazing experience, and your child has too, being part of Wake Forest, and that that connection doesn't end. We actually are hoping that if you happen to have opportunities for underclass students or students in the future who want to work, that you let us know. And whether you reach out to me or to Heidi or to Dusty Lanier, who heads up our advancement and a lot of our family engagement stuff, that you reach out to any of us because we love to stay connected to you as we go forward. So the first question oftentimes that people ask of us is, what's going on in this job market? It's very confusing because we get the impression that in general the economy seems moderately healthy. Obviously, in certain sectors, it's harder than others, but overall, it seems like things are pretty good. And we've actually had this very interesting season. It's one where it started off the year actually feeling like things are going to be particularly strong. And then as we got into the fall, things moderated a bit. And then at the end of the fall, it really picked up again. And so what's very interesting about where we are right now is that the overall job market's really strong, as you can see, with so far the number of opportunities posted on our system, which is Handshake, which actually has like uh, uh, 80,000 opportunities in the system. So there are a lot, and a lot more than there were a year ago at this time. And like I said, a huge increase in the fall and it's continuing through till now. But they happen to be in sectors that oftentimes aren't sectors that our students typically think about working in. So government, nonprofit, healthcare, county education. Healthcare, as an interesting point, is not just healthcare services, but the breadth of healthcare could include medical devices and pharmaceuticals and lots of different roles. But as you can see, that's sort of where the growth is. The opposite is happening, which is that the more traditionally popular sectors among college students, not only at Wake Forest, but everywhere, are either flat or in decline. So whether that be in investment banking, consulting, fashion, technology, things that are more, on all honesty, like the brand names that our students oftentimes know and want to work at, there aren't as many jobs available, while at the same time, there still are jobs. In fact, there are jobs at companies that may not be the most well known, but they still are out there. So I just mentioned these as a way for you to get a sense that if you have a child who's interested in these more popular areas, they might have faced some headwinds, but that we actually are working with all students who are taking the time to come see us, and who, when we can actually help them see their other opportunities at other interesting companies, oftentimes those that are below the radar that people aren't maybe quite as aware of, they're finding success. And so that's the other side of the coin, is that our students are really doing a great job when they're in the market, and as long as they're not giving up. That's probably one of the biggest things that we face right now, is that students face a little bit of frustration, or they find the first thing that they wanted didn't happen. So then they just get a little tired or get a little discouraged and then decide, well, I'll just take a break, or maybe I'll think about going to grad school. And that is an option, but I would say it's not the best option, only because there's still a lot of opportunities out there. If they can come on in and see us, we can help them out and how to think about that. Um, all right, let's keep moving forward and talk a little bit more about what's actually happening with our students and how they're feeling, and going a little bit deeper. I'm hoping that my colleague Heidi Robinson can join me here in a second. I wanted to be able to have a bit of a conversation with her to talk about our students. Many of you might know of Heidi. Heidi has been working at Wake Forest since 2010. She created our college to career courses, and she has, designed and developed them in a way that, is unparalleled across the universe of universities. It's really helped our students be very, very well prepared. And so Heidi, let's take it from here. How about if you could tell us a little bit about how you see our college students and especially our seniors. How do you think they're doing?
I love actually getting to talk about this. And before I do, I just want to thank all of our parents who are here. One of the beautiful things about being at Wake Forest and being a part of this community is that it really is about the whole family. And we see how much that parental support makes an impact on all of the students who are a part of our community. I'd love to talk about how students are doing. Spring is the time when we start to hear from our students. In fact, the way we know exactly how students are doing is that they tell us. So if your student receives something called a first destination survey, please encourage them to fill it out, whether they are still in the hunt, whether they've landed any of those things, because that helps us know how we can continue to support them. So many opportunities are just posting. We call this just-in-time hiring, as Andy was saying, and it's just because companies don't hire on the academic year. Of course, as mentioned, they hire when they have needs. And so many companies have come through the fall and even mid-year and realized, hey, things are going pretty well. We actually need to post some jobs. In fact, we have seen in the last 2 weeks postings on Handshake and contacts from employers who we would pretty typically say are finished by now. But that is not necessarily the case. And we have told students, and I'm excited to tell you parents, that having our students continue to watch, they may think that there is not an opportunity in a particular industry. And I would say that is just not always true. So even some of the traditional places like consulting, we have seen internships pop open late. We have seen that happen with full-time hiring. So I would say, how are students doing? We are really just finding that out. And last thing I would say is year over year, Andy, about 30% of each graduating class, give or take about 5%, goes to graduate school. And so we get to hear some of that. I got to hear that from one of our seniors today. And we will continue to have that confirmation going into the fall when schools confirm for us that our students are there.
That's great. One of the things that I think about is, would you say like what our Wake Forest student maybe experience and how they compare to maybe other students at other colleges? Is it different? Is it better? How might you compare that? Like, what makes it different to be a Wake Forest college student?
Oh, I love talking about this. In fact, one of the reasons we know this so well is that across the board, more than 60%, sometimes higher than that, depending on the time in the year, are engaged with our office in some way. So being able to speak to what is unique about our Wake Forest students and what they look like in the market, I would like to go ahead and lead with a story of our young alumna who was at ABC, her first job out of Wake, and she came back at homecoming and she said, I've got to talk to you. And I said, oh my gosh, great, I would love to talk to you. You got your dream job. And she said, she went into my office and she cried. And she said, no one works as hard as we do. And it's very frustrating. And I thought, well, that is actually a good story for us to hear. I speak to as a faculty member, a member of the OPCD division, and then also as a parent of Wake Forest students. And there is a distinctive difference between our students. There is something called the NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they put out a list of the key skills that companies want every year. And parents, I would encourage you to look that list up, because when you look at that list, the top 10 things that employers want, they align with all of the experiences that our students have on campus, from work ethic, initiative, leadership, project management, things they're getting in the classroom and outside the classroom, that our students just look different in the marketplace because they are equipped differently on our campus.
You sound very confident that things are going to work out. Tell me, like, where does that confidence come from? It sounds like this is part of it. They have the skills and the attitude and work ethic, but just are there any other sort of data points you have that make you feel that confident?
Oh, I do. One of the things that I would say, and you've already referenced this, but our year over year outcomes, our students, the same students that we see on this campus that are those hard workers, that are ambitious, that have initiative and remarkable experiences because of the size of Wake Forest and because of the different kinds of opportunities that are available on campus to gain experience. I'm confident our students will be successful because that is how they arrive to us. Parents, you sent us students with highly refined, sophisticated skills from interpersonal all the way to the way they manage themselves and manage relationships, but also themselves professionally. Those very qualities are the ones that they really hone here. And that's why they're successful once they graduate. It's because employers are looking for people who have had the experience that our students do.
Yeah, I want to double click on what you just said around our outcomes. We go back year to year. Basically, it's 97%, 98%, 98%. And only the time we've been below like 97% was during the COVID year, where it was 94%. And I think one of the things that, again, this is within 6 months of graduation. And I think what people can remember is that that COVID year was pretty tough. Like everyone was online. A lot of people were struggling to figure out like what's life going to be like. Our team stayed engaged. You led our team to stay connected to a lot of students, and we helped them after graduation to make sure that they had really positive results. So that's the kind of work we do after, even if students graduate without having an opportunity, like we stay engaged with them. We try to literally like pursue them to make sure like, are you okay? Do you need us? Do you need any help? And we're here for you. Like we don't turn our work down or off when graduation comes. And I think that's the one other thing that sometimes people think is that like, oh, everyone's supposed to have a job exactly at graduation. I think one of the things you and I know is employers' recruiting timetables don't go according to when people's graduation date is. It's actually when they need someone, and they're more and more hiring like just a month or two before they want someone. So oftentimes if you're really wanting to start a job in the fall, they only want you like a month or two before that to be applying for the job, not 6 months or 12 months beforehand.
Well, I agree. And I think parents, we're going to talk in just a little bit far deeper into our webinar about how you can look at some of those outcomes as well. But I really appreciate, Andy, what you said, that year over year, that's something that we point to with confidence, that that's who our students are, but that's also the kind of support that we want them to receive.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's move over to sort of common sort of frustrations that we hear from students and parents alike, and maybe we can talk through them and take a few minutes just to unpack them, and then after that, have some great students to share some of their stories.
I really appreciate that, Andy. I'm going to start with one of the things that we hear from students sometimes is what they'll say to us is, I can't find any opportunities that interest me. And we actually have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, this is what's interesting, as we just said a second ago, is that there are thousands of opportunities in our system. New ones are posted basically every single day. And so it's not aligned with the academic calendar. So oftentimes what a student might see on a Monday, they might say, there's nothing here for me. And literally the next day, the perfect job could be there. And so you can actually set up Handshake and LinkedIn to actually like find those jobs and push them to you. You're going to talk a little bit about that later. So I think the important thing is to really help students remember like every single day is a new day. It's a little bit like I think the baseball coach told me like every single year I start with a zero batting average, even if I batted 400 the year before. I gotta be ready to roll because you never know what might show up. And that's exactly what this is like. I know it can feel like frustrating, but as we say, if you're not in the game, you can't win the game. So you got to actually be in it and know that there are actually opportunities. I said there's a lot more this year than there actually have been in the past. And I know that they may say, well, they're not in the areas that I'm interested in, but you can actually fine tune these searches to actually find the ones that are right for you. And again, we can give you little ideas how to think about that.
I love that, Andy. And I guess I will say I will double click on that because I think what I would add is sort of this whole idea of just in time, as we've referenced. There are new things that are popping up in names that students know, and they're coming in right now. And
Yeah.
that part is exciting to me too. So I appreciate the idea of using saved searches so that you have a little bit of assistance. You have somebody in the background, that algorithm in Handshake feeding you opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Well,
ask you another question.
yeah,
Students occasionally will say, I don't have, or they'll say, I guess I'm going to wait. I don't have a job yet. So everybody else has one.
right.
What would you say?
Well, I think that being able to help them know and believe that not everyone else has an opportunity like secured, it does take them a little while to believe it because they feel like, either all their friends do or a bunch of their friends do. And what we all know is actually when you go to college, you sort of know that little group of people who are around you, and then we tend to extrapolate like everyone else exactly like them, and that's just not the case. I know that you spend a lot of times with students to talk just about that, and in every single fraternity, and I'm sure like as you go in every sorority, and they go, not everyone has something. They're looking, and all of a sudden they start to realize, okay, maybe my assumptions were incorrect. I think we as humans tend to think about the negative and sort of weigh into that, and then think there's something wrong with me. And so, as we said earlier, like, close to, depending on the year, 40 to 50% still are looking for graduation, but it doesn't mean that that's failure. It means that for different reasons it didn't happen beforehand, but there still is opportunities ahead. So I want people to stay hopeful in that.
And I think what you just said is so important because we have students and they will tell us this as they approach graduation. I needed to finish. I needed to go ahead and finish all of my classes, finish strong. And we know that Wake Forest is a rigorous curriculum. And so I think to normalize for students that if you can be in the process right now, depending on what your load looks like or your senior spring, but for other students, they genuinely are waiting until after they walk across the stage. And that is okay too. We are, as mentioned, still here for them. And I want parents for you to hear that also, that if that is the situation that your child has decided to choose, we're here.
Great.
So Andy, I've got another question for you. So we hear from students, I've applied, but I haven't heard back. What would you say?
I hate to say it, but most recruiters are not the greatest at their communications when recruiting. Many of them are getting thousands and in some cases hundreds, but more oftentimes thousands of opportunities. I know it is as simple as setting up a sort of standard sort of email reply that says we got your application and you'll hear from us by a certain date, but recruiters just aren't that great at it. And so I know that oftentimes students feel like it's a personal thing, like I must really have a horrible resume or like people hate me or something like that. But the reality is that's not the case. And it just happens. I wish it were different, and we wish it could be like everyone was really good at it, but it's just sort of the way it is. I think it's one of those things that students start to learn, okay, this is sort of the way the recruiting world works. And sort of, again, just keep hanging in there. At the same time, you and I will talk about this a little bit more, but helping them understand like there are ways to actually go talk to certain people in the organization that help them know that you've applied, that might actually get them to be a little bit more responsive. And so we definitely like to have students come in our office, and we get to teach them how to use LinkedIn and how to network, and they run and realize, oh wait, there are a lot of people out there who might be able to help me get a chance to be looked at that's beyond just I submitted my resume and that was enough.
I think that's so important, finding the allies within the organization. We have alumni everywhere in so many places and spaces that are sometimes until students get into the actual job search, it may be invisible to them. And so I love what you just said. I sometimes tell students in class, as a person who loved to play basketball for a long time, shoot and follow your shot. So once you've gone ahead and applied, finding those allies, as you've mentioned, whether they are the recruiter or someone else, it tells the people inside the organization a lot about you. So I appreciate what you just said.
I actually was thinking we have a lot of content. I know that we have a lot to come. I'm gonna skip this next point, which we can see, people can read it because we've talked about it. And we'll go to the last one. I'll ask you, a lot of people think that they need to have like the perfect junior internship to get a full-time job. And if I didn't have it, that's why I can't get a job, or like I don't have any hope because I didn't get the perfect junior summer internship. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Return offers are not as common as they once were. They are in some industries, but really what we want students to do in that junior summer is get great experience. And to the degree that there may be frustration that someone didn't get a return offer, not all companies are set up, organizations, to actually manage a process like that. So again, back to, it's probably not a personal thing and not a reflection on the student. And all is not lost. In fact, one of the things we love doing is helping students tell that story about their junior year internship in such a way that they are able to connect it to the kinds of opportunities that they want. And I would just add, when we think about internships, I use myself as an example. My first job was an internship post-graduation, because it got me in the door of an industry that did not recruit and did not do return offers. And so internships can be looked at in a host of different ways. And some students kind of, when I tell them my story, they pause. But internships are another great way to get your foot into the door, especially at some of these bigger names. And then that offer may come in the fall, which is still well within that 6-month period of graduation.
Good point. That's a really good one. There's another thing that I'll hear from students where they'll say like, "Oh, I don't need to apply to that job, or I shouldn't apply to that job because it's got all these skills and experiences and I don't have it. So why would I apply? Because they won't even look at it." And obviously we tell students to think the other way. I was curious, like, do you find that that's worked where students haven't been able to get opportunities even though they didn't totally fit the job description perfectly?
I would say so. Our students are so motivated and have such high degrees of initiative, and they have high expectations for themselves. And so often they will look at a job description, and if they don't have 90% of the qualifications, they don't apply. Because what happens, and that's not just our students just happen to be have very, again, high expectations. But many companies are not looking for every single skill that they've put into that job description.
Yeah.
They want someone who has the skills of a Wake Forest graduate, which is hardworking, coachable, trainable, already has experience in a host of different things. And Andy, it makes me think of a phrase that you often use, which is people hire people, not paper.
Yeah.
So between students who have allies, our alums inside an organization who can speak to the Wake Forest experience, and that we encourage students to apply broadly, not just to name brands, but to really apply to a host of different opportunities. We tell them your first job is not your perfect job. Your first job is an opportunity to continue learning. Someone else pays you to go ahead and get that next part of your education. So I'll pause there because I know we
Yeah.
have other things, but
Well,
I,
sometimes when I think of that particular point is I tell people oftentimes, and well, I hear this from parents too. They'll say, would you rather go work at Uber when it was a company that before it went public and became like this monstrous huge company, or go there now. Now, maybe you still would like to go there now, but when it was growing before everyone knew who it was, that's when it was super exciting. And so helping students go, oh, wait, it's okay to work in a place that maybe isn't well known because if it's if it looks like it's going to be something really great and there's a great organization and opportunity, it might be that next thing. So helping students be okay with that. There's so many examples of stories of Wake Forest students and alums who actually worked at places that you didn't know and then went on to go work at, name the big company, Facebook, Google, Uber, whatever. It's like it didn't have to start at like the big brand name company from the very beginning. I'm going to ask you just one more question that I hear is that we have some students who actually are struggling to either get an appointment at the OBCD or they're actually maybe they had an experience with OBCD long ago where it maybe didn't go that smoothly. And so they're like doubtful about the value of going back. And I wanted to see what you tell students when that happens to them. How do you help them realize that it's not as hard to make an appointment as you think, or there are other ways to engage with us, as well as maybe who you are today as a senior is different than when you were a sophomore or even a junior.
absolutely. So first, I think what I would want to say is that if a student is having a hard time getting into our office or needs a little bit of extra encouragement about why they should come into our office, I really encourage them to make contact with us so that we can know and we can help facilitate that. Two, sometimes what happens if students have come in when they're a first year student, before they really have a sense of what they may want to do or what those steps look like, and perhaps they come in pre-med and then pivot to something else, and we help them with a pre-med kind of a resume, perhaps. Their response might be, well, that wasn't helpful. Well, it might have been helpful at the time. What I want, my goal as a partner to parents and to your students is that you encourage them to come back in. I'll say not at different coaches have a different discipline or major that they may serve, but you don't have to go to the coach who's assigned to your student's major. Go to the person who seems to understand the things that you are interested in and that you click with. That's really the key to a great coaching relationship. And as to not being able to get an appointment, sometimes when students go in, it looks as if in handshake, they can't get an appointment with one coach, and then who can blame them? They get frustrated and say, well, there must not be any others. And so what I would encourage students to do is to look at all coaches for an appointment, one, and two, if they can't find an appointment, I want them to call our office, to call our front desk and let us help them with that. And then I guess three, what I would say is Monday through Thursday, we have an opportunity where you don't have to have an appointment at all. Students can come drop in between 1:30 and 4:30, and they can grab a 15-minute quick appointment with one of our fabulous coaches, Coach Jen, and she will go ahead and meet those students where they are and with what they need, and then can help them with follow-up with another coach or with her.
That's great. Thank you very much, Heidi. All right, I'm going to let you take it from here to have a little panel with students to share their experiences, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about some tools and resources.
Thank you, Andy. There's no group or person, I just can't even say, who could tell the story of what it's like to be a Wake Forest student than our students themselves. And so I am excited that we have Isa and Badr and Ava who are joining us to really talk about what this experience is like, what it's like to be a Wake Forest senior, what best practices may be, how they manage their own expectations, what that looks like, and then the success strategies or tools that they have been using themselves or encouraging others to use. And so, hello, friends. I see all of your faces around my Zoom screen. What I'd love to do is to go ahead and why don't we kick off, Isa, if you'll go ahead and kick us off. We'll go Isa, Ava, and Badr. If you'll introduce yourself, where you're from, and your major.
All right. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Issa Pryor. I'm from Greenville, North Carolina, and I'm a double major in economics. And then my secondary major is politics and international affairs.
Thank you.
I'm Ava. I'm from Fort Myers, Florida, and I'm a psychology major.
Thank you, Ava.
Hi, my name is Badr. I'm from Tunis, Tunisia, and I'm double majoring in biology and economics. And I'm a
This is
senior.
Thank you, Badr. And you all, I just tip my hats to all of you as we get started, just to say, you probably heard me talking about the fact that Wake Forest is hard to get into and it's hard to get out. In other words, you work very hard to gain that diploma. So I tip my hat to all of you and just want to acknowledge what it takes to be where you are. I think what I'd like to do is I may start, Isa, with you because you are coaching a lot of our students. You're coaching seniors on success strategies as a senior yourself. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you see students having and how you're helping them overcome them?
All right. So many of the challenges that a lot of students are kind of experiencing mostly depends on the field they're in. So a lot of, let's say, business majors, if they've come into OPZD, a lot of them also have anxiety around this time because they felt as though applying for certain cycles, oh, it's too late, that job is already gone. Like take consulting, for example, where the industry itself is already having a very slow, like it's a very slow period in terms of hiring applicants. But a lot of people are having struggles with just navigating the ways of finding the opportunities in a certain field, or they view it as it's not the right time to get a certain job and I should have tried in the summer. But it's really not, that's not really the case. In all honesty, it just takes a bit more digging and also not just looking exclusively at like the big four brands or the bigger firms. So a lot of students are mostly just having issues with finding opportunities that they would already previously envision would have been good for them. And then once they come into here, it's normally very helpful for students.
I love that. So part of it is this idea that there are things coming out in different areas of interest, but it may be something where they've told themselves it can't happen. And so encouraging students to go ahead and stay in the search and be confident that something is coming.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it is.
Thank you, Isa. I'm going to bounce down, Ava, to you. When I reached out to you about the panel, I had seen you in here just a week before, and I said, Ava, tell me what's going on. So literally a week before. Will you tell me a little bit about some of those things that Isa just said, where their thinking is, and kind of what's happening with you?
Yeah, of course. So, my experience has been, yeah, I was just kind of weighing all my options and like comparing my experience to junior year, I hopped on a job that I was offered in I think like September or October of the school year, and I was offered the job, and it was great for experience, but it wasn't the best for me, but I was like, oh, here's something, I'm just gonna take it. And then I was kind of frustrated when my senior year didn't really look like that because I did have a lot of opportunities that I could pursue, but I wasn't sure like which direction I wanted to go in. A big part of my plan was kind of figuring out how I'm going to fit graduate school into everything. So, kind of the reason that the process was so elongated for me was because I was kind of grappling between going down the developmental psychology path or the clinical mental health counseling path. And so, kind of once I made that decision, I decided to do counseling. Then I could kind of fill in the gaps of what was needed. So I kind of have, well, a gap year before I go to graduate school. And
You just landed this
I
job.
did, yes, last Thursday. That was super exciting. I really didn't know if I was ever gonna hear back from them because you send so many things out and just sometimes things get lost along the way, or like you were talking about recruiters and how they're not the best communicators all the time. But the job I landed was NALCAP. So it's a program, it's the North American Language and Culture Assistance Program. So I'll be traveling to Spain for the next school year, and I'll be an English teacher in a Spanish speaking classroom. And hopefully I'll be assigned to preschool. And yeah, it'll just be kind of a fun, relaxing year before I go to graduate school and start my career path. So yeah, I'm excited for all of that.
What I appreciate, Ava, first, congratulations. I'm just so delighted that that has unfolded for you because you've worked really hard at this.
Thank
And
you.
to your point, I think a lot of seniors think that it's going to be finished by now. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I would say two big things have been on my mind in terms of like wanting to kind of tie up all the loose ends. Firstly, I tell myself comparison is the thief of joy because I don't know, when you're comparing yourself to like all your amazing classmates, and most of the time you only overhear like the things that people are proud of, and whereas you don't hear about their failures. So when sometimes you'll fail or you won't get a job that you thought you wanted, but then in reality, it wasn't meant for you. And it kind of pushes you towards the direction that you wanted to go. But in addition to that, I was kind of trying to keep all my options open. I really have been like looking into everything. And of course, I wanted a job that I would feel fulfilled in, but I was also looking into some more like corporate jobs or HR jobs, and I really like working one-on-one with kids or just with people, which is why I chose the counseling route. But yeah, it was just more so keeping all those options open and waiting for everything to come back before I made that final decision.
I appreciate that, Ava. So the things that I hear as success tips, you applied broadly.
Mhm.
You did a lot of soul searching to see what it was that you wanted to do, which I appreciate. I feel privileged to have heard some of that and experienced that with you, which I think is very authentic. And then when you became clear about graduate school, you were also intentional about your gap year, getting an experience that really helps you become an even stronger applicant for the kinds of schools you want to be in.
Mhm. Yes, that is
Well,
the plan.
I love that you talked about keeping options open, because I'm going to go ahead and turn Botter to you, because I think you have such an unusual combination of majors. And that is very much a Wake Forest thing. Issa talked about his too. But your combination of majors has really, you've taken a lot of initiative to combine those and other training to go where you want to. Can you speak to sort of what that arc has been like and where you are right now?
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. Um, it definitely is an odd combination of majors, which is a
Beautiful.
great starting talking point with recruiters when they ask why this combination. And the minute I say the pharmaceutical industry, they go, "Oh, it makes total sense." I came into I came into college thinking that I would. I always knew that the pharmaceutical industry was something I was very interested in, but I thought I would be in the lab part of it as a researcher. And sophomore year, I kind of realized that my passion for business, um, whether it's from deal making or just data that doesn't have to do with biochemistry and molecular biology, that was missing. And that's when I took the decision to add my economics major. And that definitely was a big decision because those two majors do not have a single class that overlaps. Um, so I can't really use any class to fulfill both. So that was a heavy. I'm a senior right now, and spring semester, and I'm taking 17 credits. So that's definitely something, but it's part of it. And go ahead. Do you want to ask the question,
I
Heidi?
do. I don't mean to interrupt you at all,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
I paused because I thought I'm so eager to hear with the pivot that you made in your interest area, very much like Ava. You've done some things to really prepare yourself for this business side of pharma that may not have been evident to everyone, but you've done some really interesting things to make yourself this candidate. Will you speak to that?
Yeah. Um, when I was, I'm also looking currently at consulting and financial services, with a clear long-term vision of going from there as a starting point and going into the pharmaceutical industry from there. And I realized that although it's a very, the combination of majors, you learn a broad set of skills. There's that finance component that was quote unquote lacking in my, whether it's from knowledge or skills. And I realized that last spring semester of junior year, and I was talking actually with an alum that I connected with. A faculty member connected me with him, and he he told me about a certificate that he enrolled in and got that was in financial and valuation modeling, and that certificate basically opened so many doors for him. And it definitely was you know, that certificate it's a 4-day boot camp and it cost a good amount of money. And I actually reached out to you, Heidi, which you know that. And I was like, what opportunities or, possibilities does the OPCD have for me to get this super important certification so I can advance my career. And the OPCD heavily contributed, and other parts of campus as well. And I got my certification, posted it on LinkedIn, got great amount of follow up from it actually, and now it's very much a solid part of my resume. So I think it's about checking where the gaps are and just actively trying to fill them, and that's a major component of it.
I love that. And so pursuing a certification and adding it as part, almost a class, was helpful. And then Ava, I know, just to bounce back, you've taken some of the LinkedIn learning courses that are free to Wake Forest students. Thank you.
have, yes.
Wait,
They've been really helpful in terms of just building my resume and gaining more skills.
and let's see, as I recall, will you remind me which of the LinkedIn learning courses, certifications that you took? Was it, I was trying to remember if it was Excel, as I recalled.
Yeah, it was. That was definitely one of them because I'm not the most I'm big into the humanities, so I'm not super well versed in technology. So it was definitely beneficial, and I actually use the skills that I learned just every day, like learning how to make spreadsheets, and that's really helpful in terms of just organizing yeah, everything.
I love it. So something that all of our students, our seniors in particular, could pick up if they felt that there was, as Botter so aptly, correctly said, there was a gap. If there's something I need to know, I can find a certification. I can find something on LinkedIn Learning. All right, you all, I'm going to ask for final round of advice for parents of seniors, both for the parents and as they support their students. How can parents best support their seniors right now? What can they do? And Issa, I'll start with you and then work my way around.
The best thing I could probably say is just be there to, as emotional support and motivation. Remind your child that it's not just a game of, oh, you're going to be 100% and just getting a job every time you apply. Like, take it from me. I think about junior, I applied to like 100 jobs. I probably heard back from 7. So it's like, it's a long game. Don't stress them out a little too much about it. Just give them the opportunity and the emotional support to help them through this transition in life as it's very instrumental in their life going forward. And then also just to, have your own, self as support, and knowing that your child's going to be doing something well. It may not be particularly the job that you may have envisioned at first, but it's probably going to be a great opportunity that they'll land and something that they can succeed in the future.
I love that, Issa, making the next best professional step. Ava, Botter, some final last words that you might want to add?
Yeah, I can go ahead. Going off of what Issa said, I would say just try not to get too caught up in the little things, and setbacks are like bound to happen, but those are just pushing your student into the path that they're meant to be on, and your support means the world to them, even if they don't always express it. And it's definitely a weird time because I know a lot of people, including myself, might go back home for a little bit before pursuing graduate school or just future career goals. So just knowing that your support means a lot more than they might be expressing, because it is a very stressful time.
Thank you, Ava. Botter, quick final word.
Yeah, I definitely would say, just like Issa said, it's a long-term game, and realize that there are lows in it and that they're real. And myself, I had very much lows during this process, but it's all about resilience, in that you can learn so much from the process. And at the end, the amount of people you network with to get that job, it's so much better to have gone through the process than to have the job handed to you, because all the connections you make in the process are still valuable even for the future. And another thing I would say is, try, if your underclassmen, try to develop a relationship with a coach at the PCD, because that's very valuable, especially in those lows. I'll say, just what, 3 weeks ago, I was hitting a roadblock, and I went to Brian Mendenhall in the OPCD, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, this is the end or whatever. And, emotional outburst, you can call it. And just after the session, the stress went like significantly lower than it was entering there. So I guess encouraging them to go see the OPCD coaches, and that ultimately things will happen.
Potter, thank you for both that word of encouragement. Thank you for bringing up Brian Mendenhall and all the support that he offers so many, as our coaches do here. Ava, Isa, thank you all. And congratulations to all of you. I know I will see you soon. Thank you all for being here with us.
Isa,
you.
Potter, Ava, wow, that was amazing. Your experience and perspectives were really just like powerful to hear. And I can tell you're going to be great employees wherever you go. You're going to make a huge difference. Any organization will be like really fortunate to have you work with them. And I can tell you're going to be great parents someday if you so choose to decide to be one, because you dropped some real wisdom right there. It was really cool. So thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Heidi, for picking such great students. We normally would end at 6, but I think because we maybe started a little bit late, we'll go a little bit longer, and then try to give the parents a little bit of an overview of some of the tools that we use with students, so that they can say, "Oh, now I get why you're telling us to tell our students to use these things." Or maybe my students are complaining about them, they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize this is what it really is for." So, one of the things that comes to mind is students and parents often wonder, like, "Oh, I majored in name it, just like Botter, and what am I going to do with that?" And then it feels a little, especially if I didn't study that myself or I know nothing about it. I have parents always say, like, "I'm a doctor and my students study name the major. It's not anything related to being a doctor, and so I don't know what to do." How do we help them see, wait, you can go to Wake Forest, you're not married to your major, and you can take it to a lot of places. We have some information that might be helpful.
Oh, I think it is a gem, both to reinforce the message that Bader, Ava, and Isa all said, which is stay positive, build up that resilience, because I think this information can be helpful both to parents and to remind students that they can have confidence in their Wake Forest experience. So on our website, it's sometimes helpful for parents and students to see a tab that we have labeled, "Where do Deeks go?" We are very transparent about our data regarding what we would call first destinations, or the first places that students go after they graduate. So once a parent or a student clicks on this tab, "Where do Deeks go?" there's a lot that they can see, including this page that shows some of the top employers who want Wake Forest talent and places where students want to work. And so it also gives some ideas so it's helpful to see who's recruiting here and where students are interested in being. It's also really helpful to go ahead and have students look at something like this so that they can go ahead and begin to filter for themselves. What is a related industry that I might be curious about? How could I think broadly about iHeartMedia, and who are their competitors or the other people in their areas of interest where I also might be able to apply? So top employers is a helpful thing just to go ahead and have students start to think broadly about who our allies are and also interested employers. One of the other things that is helpful on our page is going ahead and looking, to Andy's point, first destination by major. And it is true that both sophomores and seniors are often very interested in this place. So sophomores before they declare a major, seniors as they exit. It's helpful to know that anyone can click on one of these links and see where our students have gone. Literally, so geographically, which employer they have and what their job function was. And that is information that is from 2004 to 2022, where we're preparing still to put our 2023 data on. So this is an Excel sheet that you can download. And I think it's really helpful for students to start to get some ideas by looking at that, and parents sometimes to see the breadth of opportunity that Wake Forest students have.
Great. Thank you for that. And so, yeah, if you have a student and you're trying to see like what are the kind of things that they might be able to do with their major given our history, that's right there. So another thing we talk about is just the use of Handshake. And we've come to see that students who really use it really get a lot of value out of it, but there are oftentimes some barriers that prevent students from using it as well as they could. Can you talk a little bit about like why Handshake is a really valuable tool and useful and can be really useful for students?
Absolutely. So when students are using Handshake correctly, what the algorithm in Handshake does is it gives them opportunities that they say they are interested in. It's really a wonderful tool for students to find opportunities, but also to have something of a career search assistant. So I'll use an example that we hear from students a lot about interest in marketing, for example. So I had a senior who said, interested in marketing, interested in New York. What Handshake does is it allows you to use a keyword like marketing and set a geographic location or four. But for our example, marketing, New York, full-time job. And these are some of the options that just came up. Some arguably very interesting opportunities that our students would enjoy having or pursuing. So let's say I have this search and it has absolutely gone ahead and yielded opportunities that I agree I'm interested in. One of the best features on Handshake is that notify me is this right here at the top in this sort of periwinkle color, the box that says notify me about new jobs like this. And then it allows the student to choose how frequently they'd like to be notified, daily or weekly. And then how would they like to be notified? Would they like a text message? Would they like an email? And so students have a lot of control over this and also a lot of support. We love showing students how to go ahead and use Handshake to the best of the opportunity, to the best of their own I guess I would say the opportunities that are present there. There's a lot, and back to the point we've discussed, the TikTok marketing job, Bloomberg, these are things that our students are interested in, and Handshake has them.
Great. So here's another tool that we oftentimes really promote to students is LinkedIn. And a lot of times students themselves will look at LinkedIn and say, well, there's a lot of adults in here with a lot of experience. I don't have a background like them. Like they'll never like want to talk to me. Like, why are you telling me to use something like LinkedIn? And maybe you can help the parents understand actually if students again spend time with us, we can help them really use LinkedIn as a very powerful tool.
Oh my goodness. Our LinkedIn alumni page, which we love showing students how to get to the Wake Forest page and then filter down to see our alumni base that is on there. It is truly remarkable. And once students land on the Wake Forest alumni page, they can use filters and keywords to find our alums who are in areas of prime interest for them. So to use our New York example and marketing, so we put in the New York filter and marketing, and you'll see that 164 names and contacts pop up for that student who might be in that hunt. So these are very powerful ways for our students to find their allies within organizations. Here are some just examples from our marketing and New York search. And these are students who have graduated within the last couple of years. So just to go ahead and show some of the results of these searches can be really encouraging for students and also help them have a flexible mindset about what might be to come.
You know, one of the things that was fun, I was in New York just last week with some young alumni, and I know most of us think of New York as being a place for just like financial services. There were 20 alums in the room, and they were in all different sectors. You know, some financial services, some publishing, some law, some healthcare, some in medical devices, some in fashion. Like it was just like a huge like group of very like diverse people representing diverse backgrounds and diverse careers. And one of the things that they all really appreciated was that they're all really open to helping students. Like they all recognize that it's hard for students, and so they're just looking for. I mean, if any Wake Forest student contacted them, they're like, "Of course, I would follow up and try to be responsive." Now, obviously, you and I know not all alums are always like you don't go 10 for 10. Usually, you might, depending on the area you're looking in and who you connect with. But I think sometimes also students have to sort of sort out the difference between, oh, if I contact someone who's just a few years out, they're really probably going to be very responsive. And a person who's maybe like the president or executive at an organization might be less responsive, and also how you tailor your communications to them. So that's another way to say, we obviously do a lot, whether it be workshops or coaching to help guide them through that, or also we have a lot of material on our website that actually people can look at that can actually teach them. Like we have little videos and things like that to teach you how to use LinkedIn well. So I think it's just a matter of just encouraging, again, your student to say, just take a look at all the stuff that's out there. That group has put a lot of materials together. It's a matter of doing a little bit of work to reach out to them, but that, again, us accompanying them through the process can really make it go a lot more easily and smoothly and a lot more efficiently. But LinkedIn is a really valuable tool for sure.
Andy, in class today, I had students sending out their first requests for a curiosity conversation or informational interview. And the hardest message to send is the first one. After that, and that first conversation, students feel excited and they feel enthusiastic. So if we can just get that first one out into the world, it really gives students momentum.
Yeah, that's great. Well, one last thing that you sort of alluded to when you're talking about her was just this way students can get experiences, oftentimes closing gaps.
Mhm.
And one way would be to do a certificate course. But I know one of the things that you've oftentimes mentioned to me is that you can do like micro internships. And even as a senior, you might be thinking, why would I do a micro internship? But I think you and I can think of reasons why you might actually do that. Can you talk a little bit about that and a couple of the resources that are available?
Absolutely. And I'll start with reasons to do it. You heard Botter talk about how at first he thought when he came to Wake, it would be lab research, that's how he would be making a difference. And he's shifted in how he's thinking about doing that. Ava thought she wanted to do one thing and now she has shifted. And that is very natural and developmentally appropriate for students to have a little bit of a shift and then to say, wow, it feels like I've got a short runway. How can I go ahead and help really fill the gap or bridge the gap to what I now want to do? Well, this website is really pretty incredible. It's called The Forage. And what it does is it allows students to go ahead and do a project for truly a brand name company, as we all see right here, and get feedback from the company on the quality of their project. Some are 6 to 7 hours, as you can see with Lululemon, and then some 2 to 3 hours with Accenture. But great ways for students to go ahead and have that kind of an experience that they can talk about. And this quote is actually from Forage. Companies are more than twice as likely to hire students who take their simulations, the projects, than those who do not. That is a powerful statement and a real opportunity. Sometimes I look at these projects and I think that would be really, I would enjoy doing that. So that is one of the places and spaces where we like to encourage students to look. One of the others is Parker Dewey. And both Parker Dewey and Forage are project-based experience and experience students can put on their resumes and can talk about in interviews. With Parker Dewey, students can go ahead and make an account and go through what are called micro internships, project-based work, and it's actually paid. So our students have applied. I had another senior, I'm full of anecdotes tonight, but a senior who was a social major, had an interest in analytics, but hadn't really done much, took a Parker Dewey micro internship. And the person who hired her said, you know what, you're great. You can learn the analytics and I'm going to keep you for the next 6 months or until you choose to do something else. So it's a very interesting way for a student to go ahead and try something out, but also to get experiences they can talk about and build their skills.
Great. I'm gonna ask you one question. I'm gonna answer one question that came up in the prior Q&A when people set questions ahead of time, and then a final question for the both of us. Um, so when you think about like where we are, we're now in middle of April, and if maybe my senior hasn't really got engaged in any of this process, feeling a little sheepish about it, or for whatever reason hasn't started, is it there's still time, or is it actually like it's literally too late and like, no hope? Like, how do you think about that? What do we do with students who are sort of feeling a little bit badly they haven't gotten started before now?
Oh my goodness. I know you saw me like jumping to answer it, because all I want to say is it is never too late.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, again, stories is a senior who walked in less than 2 weeks before she walked across the stage to receive her diploma. And she was embarrassed. She said, I didn't want to come. The closer I got to graduation, the less I wanted to come, because I didn't want people to know I hadn't done this. And she landed. In fact, she landed a paid internship in Vail. She was an arts major, and she wanted to go ahead and do this music festival thing. She's gone on to do amazing things.
Nice.
Walking in ahead, 2 weeks ahead, 2 days ahead of graduation. That is what we are about. And I'll go back to my statement. Many students really just need to finish. And like Botter, who has 17 credits, that's many students. And so I want to be sensitive to that it's a lot to finish at Wake Forest, and to go ahead and let them know we are here to meet them where they are. That is our job. And to be with them on their journey. And that's exactly, whether it's 2 days before graduation or shoot right after graduation, we're here.
That's great. I totally agree. We are here. We're here for our students. That's why we do the work we do. The question that came up that I want to just make sure I took a second is that a few questions came about like students in the business school, wondering how they're doing. We have a small group of students in the business school, about total for the class, I think maybe 250 or so. And so we're able to actually track them very closely. And as a result, I think about 2/3 of them probably have jobs at this point. So a third still don't. That's a little bit less than maybe last year where it was 70%. So it's just a few percentage points lower, not that different. But definitely we have students who maybe were thinking about a very large, investment banking type of job and looking for other financial services jobs that we're supporting. And they can work definitely with the coach that they have in the business school. There are a lot of coaches over there. And I know that in some cases they may have not seen their coach in a while. Yes, they can go see them. If they're having any hard time seeing any of them, if they really felt like they needed some other support, feel free to have them come chat with me, and I can figure out whether, there's someone else in the business school, or whether actually there's someone else on our team in the OPCD team who actually be helpful to them, but we can figure that out. But in general, the coaches are there ready and able and willing to help the students who are really looking right now. They have a lot of programs going on. So I just wanted to make sure for someone who would ask me a question about the B school.
And one of the things I would add is similar to any of our students who are not in the B school. If there's any kind of a barrier to getting into a coach, I encourage every student to call or go right in and say, I am eager to have an appointment. What is the first available? And at Wake Forest, I truly believe help can always be found for those who ask. And that is one of the hallmarks of a Wake Forest experience. So I would encourage that student to go straight in and say, I'm here for some help.
That's a good one. And also I found that maybe the first time if a student met with a coach and maybe chemistry wasn't right, or maybe it wasn't maybe the greatest connection, that if that coach doesn't feel like the right person, there are other coaches, and all the other coaches are ready to roll. Like, we're working on behalf of all students. And
That's right.
and so I think that's exactly right. Like don't let previous interactions be the definition as to what might be possible going forward. Well, last final question. What's maybe a final word of advice that you give to parents of seniors right now who, their students are probably still trying to find their way? And what would you say is a good word of advice?
I would say that no one is more aware of the fact that they are still trying to find exactly what that next best step is than the student. They are very aware and and eager to find that next step as well, and do not enjoy the ambiguity any more than any of the rest of us do. And so I think it was both Ava mentioned it and Isa did too, to believe parents that you are still one of the most influential people in their lives in terms of encouragement. They have us, our team, and they have you. And we want to partner with you to support them. So I think that's one thing I would just say. Two, encourage your student to apply broadly. There are lots of opportunities, but sometimes if a student doesn't recognize the name of the company, they may not apply. And there are so many gems that are great launching pads to some of the bigger names that they do know. So I would say that, and then let us help them. We want to connect them with people inside the organizations that matter to them.
That's great, Heidi. I'll say something pretty similar. You know, one, first job's not your last job. It's just your first job and you're just learning how to get started. Usually, I find that, you know, when students are just getting started, they're trying to figure out like, what does it mean to have to go to work every day, to actually have a paycheck, to live alone, to deal with making dinner and all these kinds of things. So they're definitely going through a big learning, they'll be going through a big learning and transition process. And so having a lot of um, kindness and empathy towards them is super important because we were all 18 and 21 now, 22 at one time, and we definitely didn't have our acts together, even though we might have thought we did. And I'm sure our students feel sort of similar. And that's just sort of a reality. But I do want to emphasize what you said, Heidi, is that this idea of finding a job is a very difficult process. It's one where we take for granted and we sort of assume, oh, you had 4 years to figure it out. Like, you know, everyone else has got it figured out. And why don't you have it figured out? Like, what happened? You know, what did you do wrong? What did the school do wrong? And the reality is that it is hard. Like it is really fundamentally hard to actually just get a job. And it can be very lonely and discouraging when you're actually doing it on your own. And so that one point you made, which is having a coach really can help mitigate a bit of that feeling of being alone and getting this kind of information we're talking about here. Like most students aren't saying the things we're saying. They're actually talking to each other and usually on Instagram, looking at all the other students who have a great life and they don't have it. And so as a result, they're getting information that's making them feel a bit discouraged. And that the second is that because the future is uncertain for all of us, and that because it's uncertain, it makes you more anxious. And then the fact that you don't know when the deadline is, like it's not like applying to college where, oh, I apply by this date and I hear by this date and I'm all done. It's very open-ended. And so the only way we can help them is by staying encouraged and knowing that success is measured by sort of intermediate steps. It's like, oh, you got your resume together. It looks great. That is so awesome. Oh, cool. You're finding a bunch of things to apply to. That is so awesome. It's not about, did you get that job? Did you get that job? Like, because what can happen is you heard even from our own students is, well, I only heard from 7 out of 100 I applied to. I still haven't got the job, but I'm not actually giving up. And I actually believe like there's good things still ahead. And that's what we have to try to help them stay confident in that. Again, remember, almost 100% of our students within 6 months of graduation are in jobs or grad school. And on top of that, we have a whole alumni personal career development center that'll help you navigate after college if you decide to make a change, which many people try to decide to make a change within a few years after college. So we at Wake Forest, we're here for you. You can tell like we care about your student dramatically, and we know you do too. And we're excited to help them. Like we're not giving up, and we don't want you or them to give up at all either. So thanks so much for taking the time to spend with us, knowing that, you know, your student is going to be okay. Just keep on believing in them and knowing that like they can do it. We know they can, and we love working with them. So Heidi, I'll give you one last word if you want to say it.
I sometimes had to remind myself during the senior year of my children that resilience is built with challenge. And your children can do this. And we believe in your students, as Andy said, and we are here to remind them how good they are and that they will land also.
Thanks, Heidi. So any of you out there, if you actually think you have like opportunities or information that could be useful for other seniors or students who are underclass, internships, any kind of opportunities at all, like feel free to just pop me a note, achan@wfu.edu, and I'll take a look at it, and either I'll be in touch or one of my team members who actually works with employers will be in touch, and we'll find a way to get your company and your network actually connected to ours. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the time you spent with us tonight. And as we always say, go Deeks.
Go Deeks.
All right. You all take care, and we look forward to seeing you at graduation.